Good afternoon. Welcome to our Committee of the Whole for Tuesday, March 21st, 2023. I'd like to call this meeting to order. And before I move along in our agenda, I would like to advise that Councillor Roy DiClemente and CAO Webster are both absent with notice. I'd ask if there's any declarations of interest at this time. Seeing none. I will move to the land acknowledgement statement. The town of East Gwillimbury recognizes and acknowledges the lands originally used and occupied by the First Peoples of the Williams Treaty First Nation and other Indigenous peoples, and on behalf of Council, I thank them for sharing this land. We also acknowledge the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation as East Gwillimbury's closest First Nation community and recognize the unique relationship the Chippewas have with the lands and the waters of this territory. They are the water protectors and environmental stewards of these lands, and we join them in these responsibilities. I'm at item D in our agenda, and that's community announcement. I have no announcements, but I'm wondering if members might have an announcement. Councillor Lahey, go ahead, please.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. This evening, while we're in a council meeting, there's actually a sports day planning committee taking place in Mount Albert at the Mount Albert Community Centre on Main Street between 7 p.m. and 8:30 p.m. And I encourage everyone in the community who's interested in volunteering and getting involved with the planning of the upcoming June sports day event to come on out and meet other volunteers and get engaged with making it a successful event, as it has been in the past, to continue that tradition. And as well, the Family Place is continuing their auction online as a fundraiser, and that continues through till March 24th to support the wonderful work that they provide and programs they provide for young children in the East Gwillimbury community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other announcements from members of council? I'm not seeing any. I will move to deputations, and we have no deputations at this time. Item F is presentations, and there are none at this time. And item G is community infrastructure and environmental services with Councillor Lahey in the chair. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. The first item on the agenda for the Community Infrastructure and Environmental Services Department is a joint Community Infrastructure and Environmental Services and Community Parks Recreation and Culture Report, CIES 2023-03, Assumption of Murrell Bridge, Children of Peace Park and Stormwater Management, Pond Elderbank Investments, Sharon Village Development Subdivision, 19T-08001. Could I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Crone. And the report is moved by Councillor Crone. And I would ask our General Manager, Mike Molinari, if he has any comments he'd like to make.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. This is a standard report to assume the remaining infrastructure within the development. The development's just located north of Sundial on the west side of Leslie Street. The bulk of the development infrastructure was assumed in 2021, with the exception of the pond, the bridge, and the park. So all remaining works have been completed and inspected and is now ready to be assumed. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Seeing no further questions, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as presented? Thank you. The motion is carried. And we will move on to item number 2 in the CIES department. Community Infrastructure and Environmental Services Report, CIES 2023-06, the 2022 Water Summary Report, Town of East Gwillimbury Drinking Water System. And can I have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Foster. The report is moved by Councillor Foster. And General Manager Molinari, would you like to make any comments?
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. This is just one of our routine reports that's provided to Council prior to the end of March annually to provide an update and summary of the performance of the town's drinking water system. Staff are pleased to advise that all 3 major drinking water systems received an overall compliance score of 94.5% during an unannounced detailed inspection by the Ministry of the Environment, which was conducted in November of 2022. In addition, an internal audit and a surveillance audit was also completed, all with positive results. So with over 5,000 water samples taken in 2022 to monitor our system, we were able to ensure that the drinking water remains safe for residents. So even with the recent increased operational flushing in the Sharon Queensville communities, we are also pleased to report that there's still a net downward trend in non-revenue water, which has been realized through reduced flushing in bales, installation of more accurate water meters town-wide, and improving our data collection and management to quantify our non-revenue water. So on that particular item, staff will provide council with further details on the operational flushing in Queensville, Sharon, and the continued partnership with York Region to address this challenge in a future report. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, General Manager Molinari. Are there any questions from members of committee? No, seeing none. I will ask all those in favor of the motion as presented. Thank you very much. The motion is carried. And we'll move on to item number 3, Community Infrastructure and Environmental Services Report, CIES 2023-10, East Townline Bridge numbers 000113 and 000114, Emergency Measures Update and Design Contract P-23-01 Award, and Queensville Side Road Bridge number 000110 Update. Can I have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Carruthers. The report is moved by Councillor Carruthers. And General Manager Molinari, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. This is a standard award report for the design of the East Townline bridges, which are currently closed due to safety concerns. So Lee Consulting was the highest scoring proponent for the design RFP at a cost of $356,845. Which will be 50% cost shared with the town of Uxbridge. And the town's funding source would be from the roads tax levy reserve. The design that we're proposing is a little unorthodox by normal municipal standards. We're proposing to use modular bridges, which have the benefit of being able to be constructed off-site and assembled quickly in the field, as well as being significantly cheaper than conventional built-in-place bridges. So this enables the bridge to be brought back into service as quickly as possible at a very cost-effective price while maintaining a very long service life. So the design's expected to be complete in 2023 with a construction award in early 2024. Happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from members of committee? Yes, Councillor Crone, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Mr. Molinari. Thank you for this report. I know residents of the area will be most pleased to see it repaired and make the road accessible again. Your comments about being very cost competitive, being able to implement fast, and of being what I would think is good quality. I can't help but think of the old business adage, you can have things cheap, you can have them fast, and you can have them high quality. You can have two, but you can't have all three. Sounds like you've got something different here. And what is the actual lifespan of this bridge? Just curious, thank you.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. The service life's actually very good. We're in the 80-year range. But the benefits of this are that it's constructed off-site. It's not that it's a cheaper material or quality. It actually has to be strong enough to be able to be transported, picked up, and moved. So some of the things that you sometimes get with these types of bridges is they look a little industrial as opposed to, and so you may not get the same aesthetic value out of it. But interestingly enough, one of these bridges was the American Association Public Works Award winner in either last year or the year before, because they added some aesthetic value to the bridge as part of the design process. So, I think where this is located in this rural setting, this type of bridge will fit in very nicely with the surroundings and offer those competitive or pricing advantages, ease of construction, and really it's a win-win-win from that perspective.
Thank you. Madam Chair, if I may, just one more. So you said that we should have about an 80-year lifespan to this bridge. What was the lifespan of the bridge that we're replacing? And I know part of the challenges we had with the old bridge was that there was heavier loads on it. And this new design, will it compensate for the added stress that was put on the old one?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yeah, the current bridge will be new. The old bridge failed because it had deteriorated over time, and then it was significantly loaded while it was in a vulnerable state. So the new bridge, brand new, has been built to, or will be built to the design standards that we choose, and that we know that the bridge will experience. So from that perspective, it'll be a very good fit. We'll also be able to lift the bridge out in time in order to do repairs on the abutments, which wouldn't be possible with a conventional bridge either. So that allows us to kind of spread some of this cost and workload out into the future as well. So all around, it's a good news story.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
And are there any other questions from committee before I call for a vote? Yes, Madam Mayor?
Yes, thank you. Wonderful. It's great to hear about the bridges. When might it be completed?
Through you, Madam Mayor. They will be designed this year. If all goes well, we may be able to put that out to tender but before the end of the year. If not, by the end of the year, it'll be early next. And we envision a couple months in order to install them. So we'll know a little bit more as we get closer to that time frame, but we're not far off.
Wonderful. I know that there's many residents who are very interested, so we can let them know that the bridge is coming. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have one question myself. It is a great news story and a win-win. It sounds like it's both aesthetically pleasing and functional at a cost-effective manner that you have described. Is this the first time in York Region that this type of bridge is being used? And are we trendsetters in terms of bridge replacement in York Region?
Through you, Madam Chair. I'm not certain if they have others in York Region. I know that they like that one project that won the APWA award was from, I believe, 2 years ago, and that's in Guelph. So they're in the area. The manufacturer is in Ontario. So I'm sure that there are a number of these kind of spread around here and there in different municipalities. But it'll be the first one in EG, and I would suspect that that we'll probably be implementing more of these as other bridges come up for replacement.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And seeing no further questions, I'm going to call a vote. All those in favor of the motion as presented? Very good. The motion is carried. And item number 4, the last item for this department, Community Infrastructure and Environmental Services Report, CIES 2023-11, Direct Purchase Award for an Inspection and Maintenance Prioritization Stormwater Proposal with the LSRCA. Could I have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Crone. The report is moved by Councillor Crone. And General Manager Molinari, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. So Council approved this project through the 2023 capital budget, which envisioned direct award of this project to Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority. The Conservation Authority essentially would develop an efficient and compliant operations and maintenance manual for the town's storm infrastructure, which would include all of our ponds, ditches, storm sewers, etc. They'd also complete background monitoring work, and very importantly, they would integrate the reoccurring work orders and inspections into our citywide program, which allows us to maintain this going forward and provide those work orders so that the work is actually being completed in a very efficient manner. So LSRCA is best suited to complete the work based on their expert knowledge of the watershed and role in developing the requirements for this consolidated linear infrastructure environmental compliance approval, also known as the CLI ECA. And they did this work with the MECP. So this project will provide the framework for the town to successfully implement the stormwater works and comply with the program that was downloaded to the town by the province. And happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from members of the committee? Seeing no questions, I will call a vote. All those in favor of the motion as presented? The motion is carried. Thank you very much. And back to you, Madam Mayor. I'll pass the chair back to you. Thank you, Mayor Haxon.
Thank you very much. We're under administration with myself in the chair, and at this time, we do not have any reports. Not sure if there's anything to come forward, but I don't believe so.
Nothing further, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll move to item I, Corporate Services, with Councillor Crothers in the chair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have no reports today. Is there any comments, Mr. Velchuk?
Nothing to add, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Any comments or questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, I'll hand it back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. We're at item J in Finance with Councillor Johns in the chair.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. As my other colleagues, no other reports, but I will yield the floor to Mr. Marshall if he does have anything he'd like to speak to.
I have nothing at this time. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Any other members of the committee wish to speak to finance? Seeing none, Madam Mayor, back to you.
Thank you very much. We're at item K, Community Parks, Recreation and Culture with Councillor Crone in the chair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have two items on our agenda today. The first item is the Joint Community Parks, Recreation and Culture and Legal and Property Services Report. Can I have a mover for this, please? Moved by Councillor Lahey. General Manager Karmazin, what can you tell us about this report?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the chair, this report recommends a lease extension at the annex location for an additional one-year period to accommodate staff. Leasing and administration space isn't ideal, but it is proven necessary over the past 4 years to provide accommodations to staff with our CIES, Community Infrastructure and Environmental Services, as well as Development Planning in the Building Department. Staff had the intent of completing full space needs analysis in 2022 prior to the expiration of this lease. However, the pandemic presented some challenges and some further considerations for staff, including hybrid and remote work and adaptation of touchdown or hoteling stations. As an example, staff is providing a report back on the space needs study in May of 2023, and we're recommending the one-year lease extension as this would be time to finalize our space needs analysis, any recommendations to council, any subsequent move management, ordering of long lead items such as systems furniture, IT and electrical requirements, workstation fabrication, install, or reconfiguration from the annex location. I'd be happy to answer any questions that council may have related to the report.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any questions, Councillor Lahey and then Councillor Carruthers?
Thank you, Councillor Crone, as chair. Through you to General Manager Karmazin. Is there any change in the cost of the lease?
Through you, Madam Mayor, there is a minor escalation cost. I would have to check the terms and conditions of the lease or refer to legal services. I believe it is somewhere between 2 to 3% per year, which falls in line with cost of living allowance.
And one follow-up question. Are there any contingency plans or if we wanted to get out of that lease sooner than the year that you are extending it for? Or are there any penalties involved if we wanted to get out of it under certain circumstances before the the end of the lease?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to my knowledge, the lease extension is for a full 1 year period.
Okay. Any other questions, Councillor Lahey? Nope. Okay. Councillor Carruthers, over to you.
Thank you. It seems like a lot of money for 12 employees, especially given that we've just opened the operations center, and these are CIES employees that I would expect to be housed within the operations center. I appreciate that we're waiting for the space needs study. I understand why it was delayed, but I'm looking at this and thinking we need to be looking at a 6-month lease. Is that possible? I think that it's just a lot of money for 12 employees, given that we just opened this brand-new building and more people are working from home, so we should be having more space, not continuing to lease. So is it possible to do a 6-month lease on this?
Mr. Carmison?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we can ask the landlord, we can make that request to the landlord. We can also make the request of a possible 6-month lease with a potential 6-month extension as well. So those are a couple options that I would offer back to council.
I would appreciate that, but I would also like to know if we can get that. I'd like to see a plan back here at council about how we're going to meet that deadline, because we accomplish nothing if we just renew the lease again in 6 months. You know, can we put our feet on the gas and get the space needs study and then the renovations that need to happen to accommodate these people done within that 6-month period? So let's first of all see if it's possible, and then come back to us with a report. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Foster, you have a question?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Mr. Carmazin, can we expect a up-to-date analysis of the people that are working remotely versus in the office to be really current with your space needs analysis? I kind of have my doubts for this location. I voted against it 4 years ago, and I still think we may come up with some good solutions moving forward. I'm just wondering about, you know, our people that are working from home versus in the office, I suppose, is always changing. So I'm not sure how we're going to get that current information. Just wondering what you could speak to that.
Mr. Carmazin?
Through you, Madam Mayor, one of the components of the space needs analysis is to identify those positions with the municipality that have the ability to work remote. And so with that, we can provide a current status of those positions with the report back.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Councillor Carruthers, did you want to amend the motion a bit?
Yes. So I can get some help with this, but that staff investigate a 6-month lease and report back to council. What do we want them to report back? Report back on if they can meet that, if that 6 months is long enough. I'm looking at our clerk for clarification.
Through you, Madam Mayor, so what I do have is like staff investigate a 6-month lease and report back to council with an analysis of the next steps or next steps? Okay.
Councillor Lahey, you had a comment?
Thank you, through you, Chair. And if a 6-month lease is not possible, can we look into what the language is regarding any penalties if we want to get out of it before a year, if a year is the minimum amount, and that we would hope that there would be no penalties if we wanted to break a lease if a 6-month one is not possible. So.
I think we could probably give that that part under direction. I'm not sure, Madam Clerk, does that need to be part of the motion, or can we just give that as direction to staff?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it's at this stage, I believe that there is an intent to investigate the 6-month lease, subject to perhaps staff reviewing the parameters of it, so we can build that directly into the body of the motion.
All right, I'll leave that to your good scribe.
Through you, I'm just formulating the verbiage for that, so just bear with me for a moment as I crafted, and I'll put it on the screen.
Take your time. Are there any other questions for Mr. Carmazin? Okay. We'll just wait for this to be finished, and we can vote.
Through you, Master Chair, I'm just going to pull forward what I have. Just bear with me for a moment. So I'm just going to highlight the portion that's pertinent to today's discussion, that staff investigate a 6-month lease and review options for an early termination of the lease and report back to council regarding the space needs analysis and next steps.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Is everyone comfortable with that? Okay, could I have I'll call the vote. All those in favor?
Question.
Oh, sorry, there was a question.
We have the 1 year still as part of that. Are we still voting on that? Or are we just voting on the 6 month?
Mr. Chair, Solicitor Ingram does have her hand up if you would like to entertain that.
Okay, Madam Solicitor.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. The lease isn't before me, but typically there's an overholding clause that allows a tenant to stay in possession if the landlord agrees. In this case, this lease is coming up for its expiry on March 31st. So unless Mr. Carmazin can negotiate a 6-month option with the landlord, I think we're either into it for 1 more year, because that's what the lease provides now, unless there's an overholding provision that allows us to go month to month. So those are your options, and without having the lease in front of me, I can't tell you which they will be, but I think we might want to keep that a little flexible in terms of what our options are.
Well, certainly a month to month would be preferable if we could get into that scenario. Madam Solicitor, are you making any suggestions for editing our motion here?
If the clerk could reread the motion, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the motion is on the screen before you, but the second clause of the motion reads currently that council approve a 1-year lease extension. What I'm hearing is a month-to-month extension, and then the clause that was introduced is that staff investigate a 6-month lease option and review options for an early termination of the lease and report back to council regarding the space needs analysis and next steps.
Yeah, so I think one has to leave the approval of a 1-year subject to the options of either an overholding month-to-month or the 6-month lease option. This particular, anytime you have a lease and you have the landlord also has to have their time to find a new tenant, and those are the considerations. This is a lease where the landlord has the town paying all of the costs, so it's a net lease to the landlord. So their likelihood of agreeing to something less is maybe debatable.
Councillor Foster?
Again, thank you. Just to try and simplify this a little bit, I think we need to give Mr. Carmazin the okay to renew the lease for 1 year, but hopefully negotiate something better. unless we're prepared to move out in 10 days, is the way this sounds to me. So I don't think we have a lot of choice.
I think you're correct, Mr. Councillor Foster, because I don't think we're meeting again by the time this lease is to be signed. So we need to give the general manager that ability to negotiate the very best possible deal for the town. So, Madam Clerk, I know you're busy typing away here for something. Councillor Carruthers, you have a comment?
Yeah, I have to say that I'm disappointed that we can't explore the 6-month lease because this was brought to us with not enough time. So that's disappointing because we should be negotiating on a six-month lease. But basically, we have a gun to our head that this is coming to us and we have to approve it. We don't have another choice. Otherwise, our people will be out of the office. So I just want to make that clear, that it's disappointing this came to us so late. I'm wondering if it's possible to defer this item to later in the agenda so that our solicitor can look up the lease and see if it does have that provision in it to go month by month, because we want to make this decision with all the information in front of us. And if we don't know what the provisions are in the lease, we're approving something without having all the information in front of us. So is it possible to look up the lease and get back to us within the hour while we proceed with the rest of the agenda?
Madam Solicitor?
Yes, I think that's possible.
Then I'll make the motion to defer this to later in the agenda.
Okay, we have a motion so moved by Councillor Carruthers to defer this to later in the agenda. All in favor? Okay. We will defer. Thank you very much, folks. We will move on to the second item on our agenda. And this looks like a good news story. It's Community Infrastructure and Environmental Services Report. Sorry, I'm reading the wrong page. Here we are. Community Parks and Recreation and Culture Memo, Festivals and Events, Ontario Impact Award, Nature Day. Mr. Carmison, please share with us the good news.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, to the Chair. I'm pleased to announce that East Gwillimbury Nature Day, based in the community of Mount Albert, has received an Impact Award from Festival and Events Ontario. This is an award of excellence that recognizes Nature Day as an event that highlights the importance of nature, celebrates nature, and provides nature-based education, awareness, and interactive activities. The town partners with the Lions, Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, the 4-H Club, the Boy Scouts, and local area farms and food service providers to provide Nature Day. Presenting the award to Mayor and Council today is Rhonda Pogue, our Manager of Recreation Events and Community Engagement, and Daniela Servino, our Special Events Coordinator with the town. I'd like to thank Rhonda and Daniela for their work with Nature Day.
Thank you very much. Are we going to do a brief photo, or are we just having a presentation to see what the award looks like? Madam Mayor, you had a question or comment?
I was just going to say that while we congratulate you, we also thank you very much. The amount of time that is spent on an event like that is incredible. And not only was it very exciting for our community, but apparently other people were watching it as well, that it was award-winning. So congratulations, and please share. I know you're two ladies that have worked on it, but there's many others behind the scenes. Please give them our thanks very much for all the good work that they do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so through you, Chair, to Madam Mayor and the rest of Council, I'd like to present to you the Festival Events Ontario Impact Award for Nature Day. If you'd like to come down and receive the award, we'd be honored to present it to you.
Okay, we'll just take a brief moment and recess for a few minutes, and then we will take a picture and we'll be right back.
And we're now live.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I appreciate the time to take a picture. It's important to recognize these events. I know I've been to Nature Day a few times myself, and it's always a great event and well attended. I do need a mover for this, though. Could I have a Madam Mayor? Moves. Unless there are any other questions, can I have a call to vote? All in favor? Okay, motion is passed. Matt, I see a question here from Madam Solicitor. Please go ahead.
With the speed of sound, through you, Mr. Chair, we have we have a response to the question about the overholding clause of the lease. Yes, there is an overholding clause which would allow a tenant, being the town, with the landlord's approval to go on a month-to-month basis. So that's in there with the landlord's consent. That's a possibility. If the landlord does not consent, however, this lease has a requirement of, basically the lease has ended as of March 31st with 1-year extensions. I think there's four or six extensions of 1 year that we have at our option. So unless Mr. Karmazin is able to negotiate something, we still need the requirement to allow us to extend the lease for 1 year.
Okay, thank you, Madam Solicitor. That is timely news. So we'll go back, Madam Clerk, to our the first item on our agenda. And given the new information, I'm wondering if we could just amend the motion to show, to give Mr. Karmazin the ability to, our preference is to negotiate a month-to-month and, or the next best thing.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm just resurrecting the previously discussed motion, so I'm just going to bring it forward, and we can wordsmith it to incorporate a different type of a language, and I believe Councillor Carruthers does have her hand.
Go ahead, Councillor Carruthers.
So we're in public session, so we're shooting ourselves in the foot for any ability to negotiate this by approving the 1 year lease extension, and then saying unless you can negotiate something better. So this is not ideal, and I would like to in the future to make sure that this comes to us so that we can approve you know, our best case scenario, and then still have time to come back to us if we do need to approve something else. So, you know, I will vote in favor of this, but I'm not happy.
Thank you, Councillor Carruthers. Your concerns are noted. Okay, Madam Clerk, back to you.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So right now, the current original motion it was presented in the staff report is the 2 clauses that are highlighted on the screen before you. The 3rd clause, it was something that council discussed and presented. I can provide additional edits to this, and I'm happy to work with Town Solicitor Ingraham or General Manager Karmazin to further refine it.
So I'm suggesting maybe that staff investigate a month-to-month lease option. If we can achieve that, then I think that negates the need for an early termination. Month-to-month lease option, or perhaps the next, or the, I hate to say in the motion, or the next best thing, but what's it?
Alternatives.
Or alternatives, thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, is the intention to provide all alternative options for an early termination?
Okay. Okay, any comments from committee on this? Councillor Carruthers?
Can we use negotiate rather than investigate? Investigate's a little soft. I think we want them to negotiate
Yep.
month to month, since it isn't available in the lease to be negotiated.
Agreed. Any other comments or feedback?
And then maybe we need to just change the order of this so that, failing that, the 1 year
So
lease
put it up
extension.
top.
Yeah. And then does the next motion say something about if we can't get the month to month, or failing that, what would be proper language?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe General Manager Karmazin has his hand up.
Go ahead, Mr. Karmazin.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Typically, we do have an existing lease with this landlord, and that existing lease was presented to council and was approved by council and executed. That existing lease had a 1-year option for renewal. Typically, if we'd like to modify optional years for renewal, typically the time to do that is at the time when the lease is being negotiated and executed. I'd just like to add that we had every best intent when we originally negotiated the lease to provide an extension period, which was presented to council and which was approved. We will now, with council's direction, revisit an existing lease and attempt to adjust the extension period.
Thank you, Mr. Karmazin. I know the events of COVID did not make things any easier, but appreciate every effort you can to get us the best possible deal. How are we making it, Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if there's an additional intent. I'm happy to take notes if you would like to change this clause, which is that council approve it 1 year. I believe the intention was to add a separate clause outlining that if staff is unable to negotiate the 1 month to month, then staff would be able to proceed with the 1 year, correct?
Yes.
Correct. Are we all comfortable with this? Okay. If there are no other, go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just noting that this is a committee of the whole recommendation and understanding that this lease extension is being discussed in March, perhaps council would want to pass this at tonight's council meeting to give it effect.
I think
Otherwise,
that-
it would be April 4th.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Okay, I don't see any dissenting opinions. I think drafting the British North America Act was slightly easier than this. Oh, sorry, Councillor Johns, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wasn't going to say anything, but you did say if there's, I don't see any dissenting opinions. I will just say that two things I want to say. One, to Councillor Carruthers' point, I'm not sure of the nature of which we typically have these discussions, whether it be in camera or not. This is the second time in my term. It was council previously, but this being committee of the whole, that I felt that there was opportunities where we could have discussed in camera. The second point that I just wanted to make was actually something that Mr. Karmazin actually brought up prior to, and I was going to say that this we did negotiate this lease, and I think that having in that 1 year extension and multiple extensions, there was an effort to mutually benefit the residents of the town and the landlord with clarity. And I think it would be great if we could, if there was something better. I just want to make sure that that we are treating our current partner in this deal in the respectful manner in which they would have secured the lease and their financial obligations on the other side of having a contractual agreement with us. So I did just want to say that, but I understand the opportunity to move this forward and explore. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Johns. I have no doubt that staff will conduct themselves with the utmost professionalism. Okay, Madam Clerk. Are we
Through
good?
Mr. Chair, yes, the second clause notes that should staff not be able to negotiate a month-to-month lease option, council approve a 1 year extension. I'm hoping that that is satisfactory to the intent that was presented.
Okay. Committee, are we good landing on this final wording? Okay, I will call the vote. All those in favor? Okay, none opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Mr. Carmazin, do you have anything else to update committee with?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the chair, nothing further. Thank you.
Committee, do you have any other questions for Mr. Carmazin? Seeing none, I will turn the chair back to you, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Item L, Emergency and Community Safety Services with Councillor Foster in the chair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have nothing prepared on the agenda today. Chief Mackenzie, any updates?
Thank you, Chair Foster and Madam Mayor. Agreed, nothing on the agenda. However, there are a couple items I'd just like to mention at today's session. Last month, Council received ESCI's report regarding the joint fire services with Georgina, as well as a refreshed fire master plan. From the report, there were a number of shared services opportunities with Georgina identified, and I'm happy to report we haven't taken our foot off the gas on this one. We've Chief Jenkins and Georgina and myself have already initiated the process with at least 3 of those shared services opportunities, like, for example, fleet services, the shared procurement, and looking into an automatic aid agreement for the Ravenshoe Road. So just a fulsome report will be brought to forward in Q4 as requested by Council on the status of these opportunities, but I just wanted to give a brief overview. Number 2, many members of Council attended the Essentials of Municipal Fire Protection session hosted by the Fire Marshal's Office. There was one earlier in the month and one this morning. During that session, it was mentioned how each municipality in Ontario is required to have a community risk assessment, or a CRA. This is a living document that will parallel or companion to your fire master plan and the ESCI report, and it's going to be used by ECSS and this municipality to ensure fire protection services are clearly linked to risks identified in the community. Staff have been working on the CRA for several months already, and we'll update Council on its progress and completion prior to Q2 in 2024, just for your awareness. And the last item I'd like to talk about, on Sunday, April 23rd, ECSS will be hosting an exhibition hockey game against the U18 EG Eagles. It's a fundraising event that we're gonna co-host, and I'll provide additional information as that forms up. And that's all I have, Councillor.
Thanks, Chief. Any questions for Chief Mackenzie? Madam Clerk, we need a resolution to receive the verbal update, or?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if it's the committee's wish, certainly you can receive the verbal update provided by the chief.
I think we should. I think Mr. Councillor Crone will move that. Good. And all in favor? And that would be carried. Unless there are any other questions from committee, I'll turn it back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. We're at Development Services, and I will chair this item in the absence of Councillor Roy DeClemente. Are there? Margot.
Through you, Madam Mayor, there's nothing from Development Services at this time. Thank you.
Any questions, comments from members of council? I'm not seeing any. Thank you. I will turn the chair back. We have completed Development Services. I'll move to item M, and that's Legal and Property Services with myself in the chair. And I'm wondering, our town solicitor, could you move forward with this item, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a report back to Council on a question about Bill C-229, which was a bill brought by a private member of Parliament, of federal Parliament, to ban symbols of hate. This is what symbols of hate, to give Council some indication of what this was about, is an example would be the Ku Klux Klan gear that they would wear, or Nazi gear that they would wear. The item, the member's bill was intended to pass legislation that would ban that type of conduct or behavior. The bill didn't make it past the first reading, however. It's sitting in abeyance where it has sat since 2022. So at this point in time, I have no further update. We will continue to monitor the bill should it resurrect itself, and I'll take any questions that you might have about the matter. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Questions? I'm not seeing any at this time. Could I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Lahey. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And we move along to item O, which is council committees, boards and groups with myself in the chair. And I would ask our town solicitor, Ms. Ingram, to provide an update for us, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd be pleased to provide an update. This is another matter that we have been providing updates regularly to council on this topic. The last time we were in front of council, we indicated that we were assembling a cross-departmental team to look at a governance, determining a governance structure for our advisory committees and working groups. We're in the process of doing that. It's a complicated matter, which is why we've been in front of you a few times in the last couple of months. In addition, when looking at this governance structure issue, it became apparent that this was not the first time this has been in front of council, perhaps not this council, but a previous council. In 2019, staff were in front of council in Q1 and Q2 with 3 reports in front of council, looking at the development of terms of references for each of these groups and advisory committees, and a policy framework. At that time, council determined that they were satisfied with the direction the staff had gone in at that point in time, which was to develop a terms of reference for each and every committee and group that the town had in place at that time. We flash forward 4 years later, and we're looking at this issue again, because in the past 4 years that have gone by, it became apparent to members of this council, at least the 5 members that continued on from the previous session of council, it became apparent to members of council, as indicated to staff, that there may be some areas of improvement that council would like us to consider making. So having put that matter back in front of staff, we are in the process at the current time of assembling a team across the departments to get together to address the various issues and complexities of a governance structure for these diverse and divergent organizations that we have. The exercise will also look at whether or not, or not whether or not, but how to develop a policy framework that will, again, address some of the questions and concerns that council members have raised with us, given the experience for over the past 4 years. And while this complex and comprehensive exercise and undertaking is being performed, which I expect should take us into Q2, late Q2, early Q3, which will align as well with the strategic plan of the town to line up with that, that exercise. While this, while our deliberations and efforts are being done to develop this policy framework, that we can't obviously stand still on everything with respect to advisory committees and working groups. So the option, I suppose, available to council to consider is whether to approve the current members of advisory committees and working groups in place right now. Usually or typically their mandate ends March 31st and would have ended March 31st unless council would like to extend their mandate and the current members to continue until we can bring you back that comprehensive report on governance. The other option is basically to let the mandate and the current membership expire March 31, so that there would be sort of a vacuum in terms of those committees. Those are your couple of options that are available in terms of that. Just to clarify, we have already, as you know, as you've already done, you've already instructed staff to finalize the recruitment for the statutory committees. So that's all in progress, and there's nothing concerning about that. Really, what's before you is the question of what to do with the advisory committees until we can bring you back some more comprehensive work with respect to the governance structure.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Crothers, go ahead, please.
I'd like to propose a third option, that we go ahead and strike these committees and start recruiting for them with the proviso that the governance structure may change at some point. I think that's within our mandate to change that. I know that the committees that I've worked on, we've lost people through attrition, especially through COVID. A number of the committees actually don't have enough people to formally be meeting. We're kind of brushing that under the rug, but a lot of them say minimum 5, and some of them don't have that minimum of 5 anymore. The volunteers who are left are frustrated that there's no new blood coming in. We have people who have volunteered to be secretaries who have said for months they don't want to be the secretary anymore, and we keep saying, just wait, we're going to recruit soon. I don't think we can wait until Q3. I think we are frustrating our volunteers. These committees need to get going. If we're talking about Q3 to get this back, then it might be Q4 before we do the recruitment and finalize. We've lost a whole year, and I think the message that sends to our volunteers is not the message we want to send. So I would like to propose that we strike our committees, including the new youth committee that was agreed to by council in our last term. We have the terms of reference drafted for that. I think we need to proceed with striking all of the committees and recruiting for new members before we lose any more people.
Thank you. Comment? Questions? Councillor Crone, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would be happy to second Councillor Carruthers' suggestion. I think we need to, I too worry about our volunteers fading, and this is something that is flexible. It's a living structure that we can trim and change as we go forward. So. And I'm very worried about the youth committee. I know there's a lot of concern out there from parents that I talk about. They'd really like to get going with this. So let's move forward, and if we have to change it to midstream, then we do. But we just be upfront, letting the committees know that is a possibility. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Johns.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just, so hearing my two colleagues speak, and I'm thinking about the logistics and operations, and we go out and we recruit volunteers, and they arrive at their first meeting, and then, like, what do we say to them? We say, yeah, but we're just working through what the roles and responsibilities of are the committees. So right now, we would like to use this as a sounding board. I think that from a valuing volunteers' time and in encouraging their growth, I just simply worry, or looking at from a different side, what is the opportunity to get involved when we are outside of a mandate while we're going through that is, I guess, really what my question is. Like, how do we solve that challenge? We are inviting them to a committee to do X while we go through this. What is that X?
Councillor Crothers, go ahead, please.
It's business as usual until it changes, and that has always been the case, that at any point in time, council can change the mandate of their committees. So we were recruiting people to the committees as per usual, and if their mandate changes, people have the option to drop off. We can recruit more people. We feel that we need a different skill set, but it's basically business as usual, which is similar to the solicitor's option number 1, that we extend the mandate and continue with the current members. The only problem is we don't have enough members to actually strike these committees because we've lost too many due to attrition. I hope that answers your question.
Any other questions, comments? Councillor Lahey, go ahead.
So just for clarification through you, Madam Mayor, we're considering the first option of extending the mandate. Are we considering any change in the deadline of accepting applications, or is the deadline for accepting applications still March 31st?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the deadline for applications is not March 31st. That's the date that the committees basically would end their term as part of members from the previous term. What we can do is work with our Human Resources Department if it is the committee's wish to initiate recruitment, and that recruitment process would align with our typical staffing recruitment, where you would have recruitment open for 2 to 3 weeks. There would be advertisements that would go out pursuant to the communication strategy that we've implemented through our work with communications, and that would be the deadline to apply for that application. However, the March 31st is the noted date in the bylaw for the appointment of individuals on that particular committee.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor, for that clarification. So I think it is a good idea if Councillor Crothers has identified certain committees which do not meet the minimum currently, that there's an advertising campaign and that people are aware that they can still apply and join these committees.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Go ahead.
Madam Mayor, the other piece to this that you might want to consider is the budget piece. So you may want to also indicate that that the committees would be approved as per sort of their current terms of reference and mandate, until pending, you know, further potential updating once staff return with the results of their review. And we may find very minimal changes, if any, to many. They may just simply carry on largely as they currently are. So I'm not certain that we're going to expect complete overhauls of any of these. I suspect probably not, but we'll see what comes back. But I think in the meantime, you may want to also incorporate the traditional budget allocations. The treasurer could certainly confirm whether that's appropriate to do at this point or not. But I know we did build those into the proposed budget, and so the committees would need some funds to operate, I would think.
Mr. Marshall, go ahead, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, through the budget deliberations, Council approved expenditures of 25% of their 2022 budget. So through this, you could approve 100% of their budget. The only thing that you would have to add is a budget for the Youth Advisory Committee, which didn't have one in 2022.
Thank you. Other questions, comments?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I've taken a moment to incorporate all the comments provided in terms of the direction that committee may consider. So, Councillor Carruthers, I believe you had moved with the idea of approving the proposed Category 2, which is the advisory committees, and Category 3 working groups for the 2022 to 2026 term of council, and direct staff to initiate recruitment, and that council approve the budget allocation with an additional budget allocation for the Youth Advisory Committee for 2023. General Manager Marshall, is that capturing the intent of the budget allocation?
Yes.
I'm seeing nods. And given that March 31st is in a week's time, perhaps committee would want to consider adopting this motion today at council. And through you, Madam Mayor, Deputy CAO has a question.
Go ahead, please.
You may, just for clarity on this resolution, you may want to add, and that staff be requested to continue to review terms of reference for a report back at a future date, just so that it's clear that that process is still being undertaken.
Thank you, Mr. Belcheck. Councillor Lahey, go ahead, please.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Is there a date set where council will be voting on the final budgets for the advisory groups? And we already passed a motion that they receive 10% of the previous term's budget, but is there a date where we formally debate? There were some issues, some areas where there was further discussion needed during the budget process that we wanted to revisit. Is there a date where we will be revisiting those issues that we can discuss further before we formally vote on it as a whole?
I would be hoping for that. However, Councillor Carruthers, you had some comments as well.
I'm assuming that we're approving the budget allocation as per last year. That's what was presented to us, with an additional budget for the Youth Advisory Committee, which I'm sure would be in line with the other committees. I think we also need a clause that we extend the committees, I'm thinking to the April 30th. I don't want any of these committees not to meet. We have Farmers Market that needs to be meeting, so that we would extend all the committees to the end of April. And I would ask Madam Clerk if that would be enough time by the end of April, if we'd be able to bring a resolution to council with the new members.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I may have to defer that to our Director of HR, as I believe recruitment, initiating a recruitment process will take about 2 to 3 weeks, but there are components of interviewing, appointment, so I'm not sure if the end of April would be enough time to get everything done.
The end of May, then. If we can get it before then, that's great, but I think that covers us.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the 2-month period would be appropriate.
Councillor Lahey, go ahead, please.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. So just for clarification, during the budget process, when we were debating the budget requests by different advisory groups and working groups, et cetera, we voted on setting that part of the budget aside to defer to a later point to consider further deliberations, because there were some additional asks from different advisory groups, et cetera. So is this motion, for clarification purposes, is this motion passing everything that was requested, or are we going to have a future opportunity to discuss those requests further?
Mr. Marshall, go ahead, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So this request would fix the budget for 2023, but I would suggest that as you're going through and looking at the functions of the advisory committees, that if there's a desire to entertain the additional requests that through that process, that's when you would confirm that, and then you could bring that back to council for approval at that time. So through your process as you're going through, I would suggest that's the time that you talk about budget as well. But I would think that you'd have to nail down the functions first before you look at the budget.
Thank you very much. Through you, Madam Mayor, that answers my question. Thank you, Mr. Marshall.
Thank you. Mr. Marshall, go ahead, please.
Sorry, through you, Madam Mayor, sorry. There's one more committee that that is new for 2023. It's not a committee, it's a
Advisory?
group. Yeah, it's the East Gwillimbury 55 and up group. They had a request in for some funding for 2023, and they didn't have any for 2022. So if council wished to entertain that, they could add that, or that could be part of the discussions for as you're going through your advisory committee review.
My feeling would be that let's do it now while we're doing the others. It is an important group in our community, and they're doing some pretty fine things with our seniors. So, Councillor Crothers, go ahead.
We also have Golden Anchor as well, so I think we have to, that's something that we need to be considering, and maybe it's part of the seniors task force, I believe we have as one of our committees. Wondering if there's a lump sum that goes to seniors, and then the seniors task force can decide between 55 and up and Golden Anchor, because both groups are doing great work.
I know that there's a little different agreement with the Golden Anchors. I think they've been there about 25 years. And I'm not sure if we have anything that is standard. Wondered if you, go ahead, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the Golden Anchors, we do provide space gratis at the Holland Landing Community Centre, and we do the same at the Friendship Circle with the with that group in Mount Albert. And the Seniors Task Force actually transitioned to the 55 and up club. And I believe they were going through a process to incorporate as a nonprofit organization. So that has in fact transitioned to the 55 and up club. Hope that clarifies that.
Go ahead.
Thank you. That answers my question. I have concerns around you have to be a member to be part of that. So it's different than the Youth Advisory Committee or something else. The 55 and up club charges a membership fee. And so I just think that there's more room to talk about this before just rolling it in with this motion. I think we need to be very clear on, are we supporting groups that are membership-based with a fee attached to them? So I think it's a bigger discussion that needs to come back.
I think that's a good idea. We will continue to have more groups as we grow, and we're all here to support them in any way that we can. It is a bonus beyond our recreation programs, et cetera. However, they certainly are in that ballpark of providing facilities to them, as well as having the opportunity to have a community organization that supports all of their needs. So I'm wondering if we can, Madam Clerk, I wonder if we could put it on a hold. However, I don't want it really to be held very long, but just something different than the other organizations, and take some time and find out exactly what these organizations are doing, what they need. What can we do for them? We're not doing it, they're doing it as community members, and hopefully we're able to support them in their yearly activities. So if we could do something to that effect.
Through you, Madam Mayor, just from a clarity perspective, and General Manager Karmazin alluded to earlier, the two affiliations council committee is referring to are not council appointed committees. There are other affiliated and affiliations that the town has, for example, Chamber of Commerce, the car show, there are many of them listed. So is the intention right now for council to further review budget allocation for affiliations and determine next steps? Because I'm just trying to kind of navigate as to what that would look like, because they are not appointed by us. So
They're community groups that appoint themselves and provide some means of recreational activities for their age group appropriate organization. Councillor Crothers, go ahead.
So I'm wondering if the language is around any part of the mayor and council budget that wasn't already approved. that come back, because I think there was, in addition, so this will take care of the advisory committees and the working groups, and then come back to us with what's left, and we can look at it at that point. Does that make sense?
I don't know what's left. I don't know what's left, so I might be talking about $10, or I may be talking about $5,000, and I'm not really sure at this point. I'm hoping that we can set it aside slightly and work with it after we get some of the other ones that are timely to move forward, and work with our 3 specialized groups that we have.
So through you, Madam Mayor, I've incorporated a clause that council requests that the 2023 mayor and council budget be brought back to council to consider allocation to community groups and affiliations.
Thank you. Councillor Johns.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to clarify that I did speak about the concern about recruiting volunteers without receiving a full mandate, and I think that the amendments that have been made through this motion of having the existing term extended until May 31st and being able to have the different groups continue to work, allowing for volunteers to be engaged and brought on, and then being able to communicate with them as they start a new mandate at the beginning of the summer to say that welcome aboard, and we're going to be getting some new guidelines, and by the time the summer is going to go quickly and it's going to be fall, and then hopefully we can receive that report back from staff. And I think that really fits nicely from a communications perspective from recruitment, and it allows for folks to get their feet on the ground and be able to hit the ground running for the fall. So I spoke out of concern before, but I really like where this landed, and I'm in full support of it.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? I'm not seeing any. Do we have, we do have a motion moved by Councillor Crothers. Be it resolved that the Joint Corporate Services Clerks Branch and Legal and Property Services Memorandum dated March 21st, 2023, entitled Advisory Committee Status Update be received, and the Council extend the March 31st deadline to May 31st, 2023 to enable the current committees and working groups to continue on their operations, and that Council approve the proposed Category 2 advisory committees and Category 3 working groups for the 2022-2026 term of Council, and direct staff to initiate recruitment, and that Council approve the 2023 budget allocation as per the 2022 budget with an additional budget allocation for the Youth Advisory Committee, and that Council requests that 2023 Mayor and Council budget be brought back to Council to consider allocation to community groups and affiliations, and that staff be requested to continue reviewing the terms of reference and report back. And that the recommendations be approved at the March 21st, 2023 Council meeting. Big mouthful. Any questions on this one? Do I have a mover and a seconder? I need a seconder. I have council. No seconder. Just a vote. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Now, I'm on item P, which is other business. I have none at this time. Does anyone else have other business? Councillor Lahey, go ahead, please.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Having attended the new councillor training offered through AMO a couple of weeks ago, it was an excellent opportunity to hear how other councils do business, and some great ideas were generated from it. And I wanted to bring up with council and with the mayor the idea that some councils do their land acknowledgement a little bit differently than we currently do, and how they do it is they take turns at the council meetings so that other council members, everyone gets a chance to read the land acknowledgement and to, in a sense, to encourage an embodiment of the words that are being said by each of the council members sharing that responsibility. So I was wondering if council and the mayor would consider in the future us sharing that land acknowledgement recognition during meetings.
Thank you. Councillor Crothers?
I'm very much in favor of that. I think one of the things that we were afraid of when we brought forward the land acknowledgement, that it would become a rote thing that's just read and we're not really thinking a lot about it. With the Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Committee, we took turns doing our own personal land acknowledgement, and we learned so much about each of the members of the committee and their relationship with the land. So I think that's a wonderful idea. I don't think anyone should be forced to do it. If you're not comfortable with it, if you're not at that point, then that's fine. I would also love to open it up to staff as well, to be able to do their own personal land acknowledgement as well. I don't want to make it into a bigger process for staff, but we want to make sure that it's appropriate, because this is all live streamed and that, so we want to make sure that we are saying something appropriate. But I think it's a wonderful idea, and I just feel like we need to elevate it, and I love the idea. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure we're going to have some discussions about it. And when we take a look across York Region and across Ontario and even further, the land acknowledgements continue to be an important part of councils. And perhaps there's something even different that is out there taking place that we could also incorporate into it. Great idea, thank you. Now, I'm down to other business again. I'm not seeing anything else, pardon? Adjournment? I could do that. Item Q would be our adjournment. Be it resolved that the meeting of Committee of the Whole Council adjourn at 3:24 p.m. Moved by Councillor Crone. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, staff. We had a varied agenda today, and I think we all picked up some little bits and pieces of things that are out there and on our radar. So thank you very much.